Hello, hello, Sandi here. Welcome to Exploring Tarot. Today we are doing a VR to Marlene and her hashtag Tarot to the Extreme. And I am so excited to finally be filming this video because I'm telling you guys, I've made this tag so bloody difficult for myself. Honestly, I've had lists upon list that I've written and rewritten, and I've been sitting here contemplating which decks to choose for each category. And I'm not kidding you, for at least 4 days. I feel so silly to have made this so difficult for myself. But I think you are going to enjoy my little version of this tag because, as per usual, you know that I'm Sandi the Rebel. So I couldn't quite follow the rules. I tried my best and I have followed to some extent. You will see what I mean once we get started. So the first category is Minimalist versus Maximalist. All right, so the first, the Minimalist deck, the Minimalist tarot deck I want to show you is this little tarot deck called, it just says tarot on the box and in the guidebook, but it's actually made by Dennis Fairchild and illustrations are by Julie Pashkis. And this is a little fun tarot deck published by Running Press. And the reason why this is minimalist, in my opinion, is because it's just got these little simple illustrations, nothing huge going on. It's just trying to convey the meaning of the cards with these tiny little illustrations. Now, the deck that immediately came to mind when I saw this category was the Mesquite Tarot, but I actually very recently, just like a few weeks ago, I traded my Mesquite Tarot. I loved it. I loved the guidebook, but I didn't really reach for it very much, and so I traded it. And instead, I got the Llewellyn edition of the Gaian Tarot, which I had wanted for so long. So yeah, this little deck is really cute, really special in my opinion, and quite underrated. So I could have put this in the underrated category, but I didn't. I decided to keep it in this minimalist category because I didn't really have any other tarot deck that was quite as minimalist as this. So that is the Dennis Fairchild Tarot. And I will compare that, actually, before I put it away, I will compare that to the Maximalist Tarot that I have chosen, and that is Tarot del Fuego. So, this is a deck. I've had this for quite a while, actually, and it's still in order because, and I'm telling you for why. Actually, it's not still in order. I just had the Fool in top. Forget everything I just said. So basically, you can tell why this is a maximalist deck. Surely. It's just so over the top. It's got things going on everywhere. We've got milk coming out of boobs. We've got stars and we've got fire, flower and skulls and ice everywhere. Weird little creatures with 9 eyes, 6 eyes, it's like It's just so over the top. This fox has 4 eyes, and it's just so much. Everything. It's just so much. So I got this quite early in my tarot journey, and it was just too much for my newbie brain. I'm still waiting for this deck to become more readable for me. I think that once I'm a little bit more comfortable, I'll be able to sit and pick out intuitively look at this deck and let whatever is coming through come through, notice specific details of the deck and let that shine in the interpretation. Because it's just so over the top, this one. I love this Queen of Pentacles though. Look at her. Awesome. Yeah, this one is really cool, really over the top, and very, very maximalist in my opinion. All right. Now, we are not moving on in this category yet. And say what, you say? Because that's usually where, or that's where the tag ends, or the category ends. But as I was sitting here thinking about what decks to include in each category, my oracle decks just kept popping up in my head. And so I decided to also do the tarot to the extreme tag, but for oracles as well. So oracles to the extreme. And this is my most minimalist oracle deck. And that's the 100 Ink Animals. And again, very obvious why this is a minimalist deck. I feel it's small, again, like the Dennis Fairchild Tarot. And this one is just simple, white space with black ink drawings of each animal, and it's just got the name of the animal and a keyword. And this deck I got secondhand, and unfortunately it stank of cigarettes. I'm pretty sure that the person who had it before me was an indoor smoker, and even though I've treated it at least 3 times with baking soda, it still kind of has that weird smell. So it's not my favorite to use at the moment. I think I might put it in a bag with some incense or something so that it will start smelling a little bit nicer. But overall, I really appreciate this little deck because the keywords are very different. They are very what's the word I'm looking for? Unique. I mean, hedgehog, indulge. Human, consciousness. I love that humans have been included in this deck because we are also animals, and I think that we tend to forget that sometimes. Snake, rebirth. Raccoon, furtive. Tree swift, delicate. Snail, respire. I mean, yes. And the guidebook, I think, is really cool as well. It's little and it gives you really valid explanations for each keyword as well. And it gives you some information about each animal. I really, really like this. So much, in fact, that I did not mind also ordering the Terra Oracle, which is basically, it's very, very similar. So that's also 100 animals in a deck. And it's also just white space with a black ink drawing of the animals. But the Terra Oracle has something that looks like one of the best animal oracle guidebooks I have ever seen. And so I really, really felt like I wanted to compare these two and see if they cancel each other out or if they have different enough animals that they will complement each other. So that's a video that I'm going to be making later on once that oracle has arrived. So that's what the backs looks like for that one. That was the 100 Ink Animals Oracle deck for my Minimalist Oracle. And my Maximalist Oracle is this little beauty. And this is a bag I made for it myself. And it is the Heart of Fairy Tarot by Brian and Wendy Froud. Now, this oracle I decided was my most maximalist one, because I mean, come on, look at these backs. It's just, there's so much going on. There's hearts, there's roots, there's wings, there's lights, there's some kind of weird, it's just so much going on. And in this, that's the same thing happening in the front of the cards. I feel like it just goes all over the place with its illustration. Most of them, though, are these illustrations filled with like creatures and fairies, and there's always something new to see in these cards, I feel, and they just feel very, decadent, over the top. Sometimes they just feel really extra for some reason to me, and so this had to be my most maximalist oracle, I feel. It's also one of the most expensive decks in my collection, because it's out of print, and I recently got it secondhand from a seller on a tarot trading group on Facebook, and I feel really lucky that I managed to get it. But it's also maximalist because I paid so much for it. I also feel it's maximalist in the kind of emotions that it manages to depict. I really love the facial expressions in this one. And yeah, look at this one, for example, the dreaming. Look at all the details here around the main figure. It's always going to be something new that pops out in this card, I feel. Same thing here, we've got lots of creatures around. So yeah, maximalist in all things, I feel. This Fairies Oracle by Brian and Wendy Froud. All right. And so for the next surprise, while I was going through this whole thing and deciding on what decks to include, I noticed that there were decks that, well, except for the fact that I felt like I had a hard time pinpointing just one deck for each category, because I felt like I had several decks that could fill out several categories, which I think is normal. But I noticed a fun thing, which is that I noticed I had decks that were very contradicting. And I had decks that could fill out both the minimalist and the maximalist category at the same time. So I have added, as a bonus to this video, the paradoxical option for this tarot tag. So the deck I have chosen to be a minimalist deck that's also maximalist to me is the Lua Tarot. So this is paradox number 1. The Lua Tarot is this beautiful, beautiful deck. Black and white, collage found work, I believe, by Marie Bento. And it's simple, partly because I think it's partly because of the lack of color, I think, but it's also quite maximalist in its meanings and in its way of depicting. I feel like it's so luscious in all of its depictions. I feel like there's a lot going on in each card. But it's at the same time, it just does feel very scaled back and easy. I don't know, there's something about it that makes it just hover in the world between maximalist and minimalist. And that excites me so much. This is such a gorgeous deck. And this is another deck that I got secondhand from Kasha from the Tarot Map. And yeah, really, really love this deck. Look at this Page of Wands. Yeah, so that was the Lua Tarot by Marie Bento, which I feel is both maximalist and minimalist at the same time. All right, time for the next category, which is daytime versus nighttime. So, tarot of the daytime for me is the Happy Tarot, and I think that's pretty self-explanatory. This deck has something about it, the light quality in each card. I just think that there's so much light in this, even in the dark ones. This one just looks and feels like daytime to me. There's sun rays in basically every card. It's so bright, it's so fun, and most of the things that they're doing is happening on a bright sunny day. And even in this little card here where he's all sad, you can see the rays of sunshine here. It's just such a daytime deck, really. Even in the dark cards. Fun, bright, and so much daytime in this. And so, the nighttime deck in tarot is also quite a maybe a typical or predictable pick, but it's the Guardian of the Night Tarot by MJ Cullinane. So it's got night in the title, yes, but I think it's got that for a reason as well. I feel this deck is very much a deck that you will pull out in the evenings and sit with. It's very dark. Most of them are displaying a moon or starlit night. It's just a very nighttime deck. Guardian of the Night. So this is the indie version that I got from MJ herself. And I do really like this deck. I've had some really, really potent readings with this deck. Haven't used it a lot lately because I feel like I've been moving towards brighter times. Also partly because it's been summer and it's very light here in Scandinavia during the summer. I might be starting to pick this one up a bit more when we head towards autumn now. I feel like it's a very, dark time of the year kind of deck as well. So yeah, this was my tarot for the nighttime, the Guardian of the Night Tarot. All right, on to the daytime oracle, and that is my Winter Seers oracle. You think winter and you think dark, but for some reason I just see daytime in this deck. Snowy winter daytime, bright and amazing and illuminating. It's a very, very bright and beautiful deck. This one is by Ciolo Thompson, and it's just so gorgeous. I love this deck so much. It's mostly featuring, or is featuring, I think, mainly northern animals, hence the Winter Seers name, which really speaks to me because it feels like, animals from my part of the world. Love this snail card. There's so many beautiful animal decks. I have a really hard time choosing which ones I like the most. And I know I shouldn't need so many, but I just need to learn how to rotate them better, I think. I need to start using this deck more. Yeah, so this was the Winter Seers Oracle by Ciolo Thompson for my daytime oracle. And my nighttime oracle is Illuminated Earth Oracle. It's very nighttime to me. This is by Claire Mack. And I don't know why exactly, but this just feels so nighttime to me. Even in the light cards, it just feels like something I would huddle up with in the darkness and read to myself, when I'm having a hard time, or when I want to explore some of my deep-seated emotions. This is definitely a nighttime deck for me. So beautiful. One of my absolute favorite oracles of all time. The cardstock is lovely and soft and luscious against your hands. Everything about this deck is just amazing. And I was so tempted to get the Faceted Garden as well, but I haven't really, I haven't gotten that one yet. I really prefer these, the keywords in the Illuminated Earth. I am, however, really looking forward to Claire Mack's tarot deck that she's working on right now. Alright, let's not flip through the whole deck. So this was the nighttime oracle of choice. Alright, and so for the paradoxical option or choice in this round, or for this category, I have chosen the Tarot of Mystical Moments. So I was sitting here just flipping through this deck over and over again, and I was thinking about which category it would go best in, because I was thinking about putting it in a different one several times, and I just feel like in the end I was sitting here thinking, oh, I should put it in the daytime decks, and then I was flipping through it and I was like, no, it is very daytime, but it's also quite nighttime. And I started just feeling it's both. It's like I can't decide. This feels like nighttime and daytime at the same time, this card. And a lot of them feel that way to me. It's like I can't decide whether it's day or night in these cards. Like in this one, I can see the stars, yes, but then it's also kind of light. And I was like, is it day? Is it night? Is it day? Is it night? Is it mostly maybe dusk or dawn? So yeah, I just started thinking, no, this deck is both. It's both day and night, and sometimes you really don't know what time it is. Sometimes I just feel like we're in this liminal space, in this transition time between day and night in this deck. And like this one here, I just feel like this is between day and night. This is like in the morning time, right before the sun comes up, between day and night. It's like, yeah, so this deck is really just, it's both at the same time, and it's both at the same time in the same card a lot of the time. So yeah, Tarot of Mystical Moment is my daytime nighttime paradox deck. Next category is best shuffle versus worst shuffle. So this one was really funny, and I was sat here because I could immediately tell you which oracle was the best shuffle, because it's the best shuffle of all of my decks, period. And that's actually the one. This is actually the one deck that made me decide that I also needed to include oracles in this tag, because I couldn't not mention this oracle deck for my best shuffle. It just deserved that spot so much. So that put me on a bit of a shuffling journey, because I have troubles shuffling, all right? I can't riffle shuffle. And I've got tiny hands, as you probably know by now. And I just struggle with my shuffling, all right? And I couldn't, but from the top of my head, tell you a single tarot deck that I enjoyed shuffling. Like that was just the best shuffle. Because at some point or other, I've struggled with all of my tarot decks when it's come to shuffling. I might. But in the end, we got there. So the tarot deck I chose as my best shuffling deck is the Tarot of the Mystical Forest, but only after I have trimmed it. So I don't know if this counts, but after I trimmed this deck, it just became the perfect size. It's got the perfect sliding action without being slippery. It's the cutest with its, completely borderless style. This one could have also gone in my nighttime decks, to be honest. I feel, or in other categories. This one is super nice, super fun to shuffle. I could probably sit and shuffle this for quite a while, just sitting and watching a television show or something. It's small enough for me to control it really well while I'm shuffling. It's easy enough to handle, and I don't get unnecessary jumpers. I just really like holding and shuffling this deck. It's the perfect size for me now, after I've trimmed it. So that's the Tarot of the Magical Forest. Tarot of the Magical Forest. By Leo Tang, it says there. So, and the worst shuffle. Now, like I said, I have trouble shuffling. And but here it is. Gosh, you guys, I really despise this coating, this rose petal matte weird coating. I just can't shuffle this deck. Sometimes it wants to do it, sometimes it doesn't, sometimes it just sticks. It's so unpredictable, and it's now I have to push it really hard to go back in. And of course, when I'm doing it on camera, now it's gonna work pretty okay. I think that maybe I just need to, break this deck in. Maybe the more I shuffle it, the less it's gonna stick. I don't know. It's so weird now, though. Now it works perfectly fine when I'm sitting here doing it in front of you guys. But yeah, This is the Dark Mansion Tarot. I'm still not going to change my mind because I love the feel of it, but it just, in my hand when I'm working with the deck, I don't know. I adore the colors in this artwork so much. The stick figure arms annoy me a little bit, but this is about the worst shuffle. And I just really don't enjoy shuffling this very much. Most of the time it bothers me, and most of the time the deck just falls apart in my hands as I'm shuffling. It's just, and cards just go everywhere. Now, with that said, the strong contender for this, or what I was thinking about showing you for this, was the Schiffer edition of the Gaian Tarot versus the Llewellyn edition of the Gaian Tarot. Because the Schiffer edition was humongous, and even though I trimmed it twice, it still kind of hurt my hands to shuffle it. But instead I decided to go for this rose petally finish of the Dark Mansion Tarot. And I want to love this deck so much. I want to work with it so much. I just think maybe I should sit and shuffle it and shuffle it and shuffle it until it starts behaving for me. If you have this deck and you've used it a lot, please let me know if this stickiness goes away after a while, because I would love you to tell me that's true. Because I was hoping to work with this a lot in October. So, and then we go over to the oracles, the best shuffle for my oracle decks. And who started all of this is the Untamed Spirit Animal Oracle. Honestly, this was just an experience the first time I tried to shuffle this deck. It is glorious. And I was like, at first I was like, oh no, it's glossy. I don't like that. I don't like that at all. And look, even with this one that I like so much, it's misbehaving just because I'm telling you that it's good. No, honestly, it's so creamy. That's the word I want to use, creamy. It's creamy to shuffle. It's like, it's soft, it's luscious, it feels really good in the hand. And it didn't do any of this jumper stuff when I started shuffling this the first time I did it. It felt really controlled, really well done. I really liked this coating they have on this deck. So let me just show you the cards quickly. I've just done a walkthrough of this though, so you can see the whole deck if you want to. So yeah, this is the Untamed Spirit Animal Oracle, and this is actually the newest deck in my collection at the moment. It is done with the scratchboard technique. Basically, a scratchboard is a black surface, and when you scratch on it, the white comes through. So you work you bring out the light in the picture rather than putting the dark on, so you work basically in reverse to how you would be drawing regularly. Adore this deck. It's so pretty. It's so pretty. And even though it's got a bit of gloss, it really doesn't mind. I really don't mind. Because like I said, it feels so nice to shuffle in my opinion. But then again, I am not a riffle shuffler. So, but I think that riffle shufflers would have have a good time with this. It's very flexible, very bendy, but it snaps back really well. So, yeah. But then again, I wouldn't know because I don't riffle shuffle. So yeah, that's the Untamed Spirit Animal Oracle. Alright, and don't come at me. It hurts my heart to include this deck as the worst shuffle, but it just simply is. And it's for the same reason as the Dark Mansion Tarot, really. And that is the Roots and Wings mini oracle. So this one also has this sticky rose petally finish, and I got this deck very generously as a gift from my friend Krista. But I can't shuffle this deck. It just sticks and sticks and sticks, and I just get annoyed. So annoyed that I'm at that point where I want to work with this deck. But I'm thinking I might have to buy the regular big version, because I think that one comes without this rose petal finish. Don't quote me on that though, because it might just have been me wishing and hoping that it is so. I love this artwork so much. I really, really do. But I haven't been drawn to work with it, because when I try to shuffle it, it's just, oh, okay, again. No, because I'm doing it on camera, it works. But it's just, oh, this is so funny. Maybe I should film myself every time I try to shuffle. Still, this is not an enjoyable shuffle for me. It just isn't. It just isn't. I think maybe I need to adjust my grip when I'm working with this deck. I don't know. It's just, yeah, it's the rose petal finish. It's not the artwork's fault at all. I really want to work with this deck. I really do. But I am very, very tempted. Oops, I am very, very tempted right now to also get the full-sized version, just because the rose petal just is not my cup of tea. So, and it feels like if this one was going to get any less sticky, then it would have gotten that way already, because this one was second hand. I mean, Krista used this one before me. So, yeah. I need to work with this. I'm going to leave this out because I need to try and work with it more. Maybe it will loosen up a little bit. All right. So, this is a little bit of a funny one as well. This is the paradox of the best and the worst shuffle. So, how does that work, do you ask? Well, I will tell you. So, a deck can feel amazing to shuffle, but you can't get much control over it. And the cards I'm going to show you is the card postal. I know in my walkthrough I said I love to shuffle this deck, and I do, because I love the feeling of it. But it's that kind of cardstock that sometimes it just, look, there we go, flip up. And I can't read my I can't read either. This deck is just so excited to work with me that it just keeps offering up cards. But I think the most probable cause is that I can't control this deck. Look, there we go again. It's just I keep getting cards that fall out, jumper cards, half the deck falling out of my hands. I love the sound of this deck. I love the just the cardstock overall. It's a lovely cardstock. It's luscious, and I just blame my tiny hands, I think, for me not being able to shuffle this in a good way. But I love shuffling it. However, it is one of the decks that fly out of my hands the most. So yeah. Card postal, best and worst shuffle, paradox. Love it to bits though. Actually, another deck I should mention as the worst shuffle is the Tarot del Fuego, because it's just so goddamn slippery. Look. This actually is probably worse than the Dark Mansion when it comes to shuffling, because at least it's just so slippery. I can't handle this deck. I just can't. It's small enough, and I love that about it. But it just falls out of my hands so bad. So yeah, Tarot del Fuego is definitely on my bad shuffle list. All right, next category is the most confronting and the most comforting deck. So, the most confronting is probably not going to be a surprise to any of you. And that deck is a deck that I also was gifted by the lovely Krista over at Crochet Witch Tarot. And that, my good friends, is the Deviant Moon or Deviant Moon Tarot. I was looking at this deck for so long, thinking, no, I can't get this deck. It's too much for me. It's too much. And I must say that I have warmed up to this deck so much after I got the Trionfi de la Luna illustrated pips. That deck actually made me see the Deviant Moon in a whole different light. But I still feel that it's confronting to me. It's confronting me in ways that I did not even know I needed to be confronted. And yeah, I think that's the point of this deck. So that's why I said it's probably not a surprise to anyone that this is a confronting deck. But I am honestly falling in love with this deck. The more I look at it, I mean, this card, I love it. So yeah, I do feel though that I need to be in a certain kind of space to work with this deck. Definitely. Ah, yes. So this was the Deviant Moon by Patrick Valenza as my most confronting tarot deck. Now, my most comforting tarot deck is probably also quite obvious. It's the Gentle Tarot by Marisa Tovar, or Mari in the Sky. Now, this one is also quite difficult for me to shuffle, so I could have put it in that, but I didn't, so because I wanted it for this category. This deck, you guys, it's so good. It brings me back to nature, in a nature headspace at least. And I cannot wait to get the big guidebook. I wasn't able to back it on Kickstarter because Mari actually recommended me to wait until it was stocked here in Europe by one of her stockists or resellers. But yes, this deck is comforting to me in all the ways, and it also challenges me, and it's just it does everything. I love it. I love this deck so much. Oh, I love this deck so much. Yes, so that was Gentle Tarot by Mari in the Sky. Now, the most confronting oracle deck, I decided to go with, I had a few options here, but I decided to go with the Reclaim Oracle. I also almost included the Reclaim Oracle in my nighttime decks. But then I started to think about it, and I felt like, no, even though it's, got a very black background in every card, it's not necessarily nighttime. It's just that these creatures, they don't exist outside yourself. They're inside of you. So it's dark inside of you. That's how I feel. Like, yeah. These are just, depictions of the feelings that are inside of you. That's how I see it. So it's not necessarily nighttime. But yeah, this deck, I don't work with it often because it just brings out so many emotions. And that's why I think it's confronting. Because it really just puts that emotion right there in front of you and says, deal with this. And that's good and all, but it's not something that you want to be doing constantly. Contempt. Look at this card. Yeah, now just holding this deck and looking at these pictures in this short little flip through here is making me feel quite heavy-hearted. So yeah, this is definitely one of my most confronting oracle decks, or at least hard-hitting. Maybe you wouldn't categorize it as confronting, but definitely I feel confronted often when I when I use this deck. All right, so the most comforting oracle deck that I have is also kind of a cliche, and say what you want about Colette Baron Reed decks. I have my issues with this deck as well, on several fronts, but with that said, it never ever fails to comfort me when I need it. I have trimmed this deck and edged it so that I could shuffle it easier. This would have otherwise been in my worst shuffle category, but since I trimmed it, it's a lot easier to handle. Yeah, say what you want about her decks and her. This deck, would be better. I agree. It would be better if it didn't have all of these adornments on the animals. I don't like it when you put a bunch of extra fiff-faff and human adornment on animals. I don't like it. But with that said, since this is a comfort deck for me, I try to not take it so seriously. I'm just like, it's just for fun. It's a picture. They haven't actually put these things on these animals. It's a pretty deck. You can't deny that. It's got pretty colors. It's got awesome animals. I love most of the little keywords, and the write-ups in the guidebook is actually often very, very helpful for whatever you're going through. I always feel comforted by this deck and the guidebook. I always feel like I get some kind of nugget of wisdom that I can contemplate or journal about. Look at this gorgeous squirrel. Oh. And I just feel like, yeah, I can forgive it for everything else. I just love this deck. I can't help it. I just do. Because this was also one of my first oracle decks, I think, if not the first, since I started using tarot in a more regular way. So this was actually the only oracle I had for a long time, and so this was the oracle I turned to when I had hardships. And it's just become a friend to me. It feels comfortable in my hands. It has a very specific coating on it that makes it feel really soft and gentle. The animals look welcoming and wise and beautiful, and yeah, I've nearly gone through the whole deck now. Sorry, I got a bit transported there. So yes, this deck is definitely a huge comfort in my life. And now, on to the paradox in this category. This is a deck that's both confronting and comforting at the same time. And for this one, I chose the Nature's Wisdom message cards. So this is a simple little deck with just photographs from nature. And a simple word just stating what it is. Sun, mammal, tracks, litter, mist, scrapes, leaf. You get the drift. Now, this does not come with a guidebook. Instead, it has messages on the back. And this is where it gets interesting. So, a lot of the time, the messages on the backs of this one have sometimes very comforting messages, and sometimes it's just very straightforward and very, like telling you what's what. And I find that's a bit confronting at times. So let's see if I can find one. So here we go. Channel your energy. Be productive. Don't waste your energy by huffing and puffing. I mean, come on, that is confronting. Being loud does not make you correct. Turn aggression into assertiveness. Be dynamic. Think before you act. Think before you speak. Use your energy wisely. Be your best. I mean, come on. That's like, okay, depending on your mood, you can either take that as, okay, this is encouraging, or it can be like, hang on, come off your bloody high horse. Who the hell are you telling me all of this? And this is for thunder. So yeah, I mean, it can have very comforting messages, or it can have very, very like head on, like talk to you like it's your mother or something. And it's just I couldn't decide where to put this deck, and then I just realized it's both comforting and confronting at the same time. I get quite confronted and kind of a little bit annoyed sometimes at this deck, and I find that so interesting. This is a card that I pulled the other day when I went to work when I really should have stayed home sick, and the next day I got a fever. And it said burrow, and the message behind it was, you are being requested to go to ground, to pull your head in, bite your lip, and back off. Retreat. You are not running away or dumping responsibility. Let go of control. Release. Show discernment, discretion right now. It may be vital to let others learn from mistakes. So I just felt like, yeah, you know what? This is a deck that I can get on with. I really like it. I really love this diddy little size. I love the beautiful photographs in this deck as well. I've recently come to really appreciate photograph decks for some reason. I don't know what's happened or why, but it's just, yeah, favorite of mine, and the paradox deck for the confronting and comforting decks. All right, the next category is everyday versus every so often. So I am doing a faux pas again, and the deck that I have chosen for my everyday is none other than Carte Postale that I just showed you as the the best shuffle, worst shuffle paradox. That's why I didn't show too much of it, because I knew it was getting more screen time in a little bit. So this deck, honestly, you guys, it's a new gem in my collection. And at first I thought, I'm not going to include any deck that's not a well-known deck for me. But I have done a deep dive study with Krista and Andy with this deck, and we have talked about it. I've done so many readings with it already. I've read for myself. I've read for friends. I've been using this deck basically every day ever since I got it. And that's why it's in my everyday deck selection. It's a gorgeous deck. I love it to bits. It has some issues that could have been different, but all in all, I forgive it for all of it because it just does something. It just speaks to me. It speaks to me so well as well. It makes me laugh. It makes me think. It makes me have insight. It's beautiful and gorgeous and all the things at the same time. Plus, it feels amazing in the hand. So this is the Everyday Tarot that I decided on, the Carte Postale Tarot. Now, the Every So Often deck that I chose is the Shimmering Veil Tarot. Now, this deck is something else. I cannot work with this for long at the same time because it's just very, very special and I don't know, the readings you get with it can be quite scary sometimes. I could have put this in my Confronting decks, but it's more than that. It's deeper than that. And yeah, I feel that this has so many interpretations, so many hidden feelings behind all of these brushstrokes. I just, wish I could work more often with this than I have been. But it's just, I think maybe once I have a little bit more, I don't know, confidence, I might be more confident in reaching in and listening to all the things that this deck has to tell me. But right now, not right now. So that was the Shimmering Veil Tarot for the tarot portion of the Everyday versus Every So Often. So now we get to the Everyday and Every So Often part of the oracles. And the oracle I have chosen for this part is the Woodland Wardens. Now, this deck is so gorgeous, so pretty. The guidebook is lovely. It gives you questions and journaling prompts, and I chose this deck because I honestly would not mind using this deck every single day. And I have, really. I have been using this oracle the most out of all of my oracles since I got it. I feel that it pairs really well with a lot of my decks because I have a lot of nature-based decks, a lot of animal decks and plant decks and stuff like that. And I chose this mostly because I honestly could just work with this every single day because it's just so gorgeous and so... Yeah, I just really love this deck. That's it. Now, the deck that I have chosen for the Every So Often in Oracles is Messages from the Light meditation deck. Now, hear me out, because I don't have a logical explanation for this. I got this deck with the hopes of working with it nearly every day, you know. But that just turned out to not be the case for me. I adore the artwork, and the guidebook is okay. But there's just something about this that makes me want to work with it on a more deeper level. Kind of like pulling it once in a while and really properly contemplating on each card, like having it out for a week or two, or maybe even a month, and really deep diving into what this energy means. I don't know what it is. I think it's the artwork. I don't know. I can't explain it any better than that, really. There is just something about it, and I've just not been in the right headspace for it in a long time. In a long time. So this deck has not been in use for me, and that's why I've decided to put it in with every so often use in the Oracle section. Okay, and now on to the paradox of the everyday versus every so often. And the deck I've chosen for this is the Gaian Tarot. Now, this one might be a bit more difficult to explain, but I adore this deck so much. It's so pretty, and it strikes the right chord with me on so many levels. For the most part, I will say. This card gives me all the feels. Most of the cards gives me so much. Some of them give me a bit of a iffy feeling, like I don't know what it is about it. Like some of them are a little bit too hippie-ish for me. But what I mean by the whole using it every day and every so often is it's expansive and beautiful enough for me to want to work with it every day. Okay? I could easily have this as my only deck for a long time, because it's just that varied and inclusive, and it's got animals, it's got humans, it's got nature. It's just, Gaian Tarot. It's really, really beautiful. I love this deck. But hear me out. The reason why I have not started working with it every day is because I feel that this deck takes a lot of work to get to know in a way that will be the most beneficial way. The guidebook is huge, and the guidebook has so many different things going on. It's got keywords, it's got exercises, it's got journal prompts, it's got, it's just, I definitely want to get into this, and I want to do it every day, but I feel like I can't do that right now because I have so many other interests. I have so many other decks that I want to get to know. I have a deep dive series on the Forest of Enchantment. I have lots of decks that I love so much that I want to work with. And I feel like at this moment in time, I want to be using different decks every so often. But this deck deserves deep contemplation and dedication, like loyalty, I feel almost. And I can't give that to it right now. So the timing for us is not right. So that's why I put it in my everyday, every so often paradox, because I want to use it every day because I think it deserves that. But I can only give it every so often. Sorry, dude. So that's my Gaian Tarot. And this was the Llewellyn edition. That's my newest treasure. All right. The next category is overrated versus underrated. All right. So This category was the absolute worst. Marlene, what are you doing to us? I had such a hard time doing this particular one because I don't feel adequately equipped to decide if a deck is overrated or underrated. I really can't. I don't know what makes a deck overrated or what makes a deck underrated. When I start thinking about it, I just get more confused. And I don't feel like I have any sort of authority to declare a deck to be underrated. So please take this with a huge grain of salt. I will be explaining why my choices are the way they are. So yeah, but let's start with the first overrated tarot deck. So the tarot deck that I've chosen to be the overrated one is the Wild Unknown. I'm so sorry, I know this is a very beloved deck. And that's why I had such high hopes for it when it came. But I fear that there is something lacking in me because I just can't see it or get on with it. And I don't understand why. I love animals. I love animal decks. And I was drawn to the artwork in this so much. I love the way that it's, black and white and then these pops of colors. It's really pretty. Look at this card. So pretty. I just don't know. Maybe I'm just not good enough to know what this deck is about. I don't know. I bet maybe if I just put all of my other decks aside and only use this deck for ages and ages, eventually that would change. And I'm just saying I chose this as the underrated tarot just because I have not been able to bond with it. And I just expected to bond with it, So it was like my expectation and the disappointment when I couldn't, And I feel like everybody loves this deck. Everybody can read with this deck, but not me. And I feel like there must be something wrong with me. That's the first thought, I know that's not the case. You don't have to, encourage me or anything in the comments. I just don't know why I don't feel anything. It's, yeah. It's very, very odd. I think also it partly has to do with the circumstances of how I got it. Like, I ordered a specific version of it, like a specific imprint, because I knew that the cardstock had gotten really bad at some point when it changed imprints. And I found the right imprint, according to Book Depository, but when it arrived, it was the bad imprint. And I hated the cardstock. I really did. The edges were so rough, it really hurt to shuffle. I contacted them about it though, and after a while, once they finally understood what I was on about, they did refund me the price of the deck though. And I got to keep the deck. So I trimmed off the really rough borders, and now I can at least shuffle it, and I don't really mind the cardstock too badly now. But I still don't use this deck, and it irks me, so that's why. I don't know if it deserves to be called underrated because of that, but it's the closest thing that I have for an underrated deck in my collection. I don't have any other ones that I would consider underrated. Sorry, overrated. So the underrated tarot I'm going to show you is actually one I've already talked about today, and that's the Lua Tarot. Sorry to be the repeating decks, but I don't. That this is the one I wanted to talk about. So I tried not to show too much of this deck earlier, but I'm not going to talk too long about it. But I do feel that this is underrated. I don't know if that's the case. You know, maybe it's not underrated. Maybe it's very, very, averagely rated. I don't know. I just feel like I saw this deck a little bit once it first came out. It gathered a bit of momentum, and then I just haven't heard a peep. But maybe I'm just in the wrong channels. I don't know. I don't feel like anybody is talking about this deck anymore. Please correct me if I'm wrong. But I love this. Like, look at these two little gentle ladies with their teacups. Love it. This deck, you guys, it's so good. I really, really adore it. And I feel like it needs more recognition. It needs to be talked about a bit more. And I am filming a walkthrough of this deck. I didn't, for some reason, do a first impressions flip through of this deck. I don't know what happened there. But instead, I'm going to be doing a little bit of more of a deep dive type video soon enough of this deck. I think it's because it's black and white. Most people prefer their decks to be color, I think, and that's why it's not getting the recognition it needs. There's so many good, gorgeous decks out there, but I really think this one is so pretty, and I think that if this one was color, it would just be too much. There's so much going on in these cards. They're so detailed and beautiful, and God, love this Queen of Wands. So yeah, most underrated tarot deck, I think, is the Lua Tarot. In my humble opinion. All right, so over to the Overrated Oracle. All right. So when it comes to an overrated oracle, I honestly don't think I have a single one in my collection. I think each oracle has something to contribute in one shape or form, in one shape or the other. I feel like that's the same way with tarot. I honestly have. I was thinking about mentioning the Magical Herb Oracle as the overrated oracle in my collection, but I don't know that it is. I feel like the guidebook might be a little bit too specific at times, but that shouldn't make it overrated. I don't know, you guys. So, because the oracle part of this tag is something that I've added myself, I also write the rules in this part, and I'm just gonna say I don't have an oracle deck that I feel deserves being called overrated, really, in my collection. However, I do have an underrated oracle deck, and that is The Soul's Journey Lesson Cards by James Van Praagh. Now, it might not be the most beautiful oracle deck that you've ever seen. It might not be your cup of tea. But honestly, you guys, I have had this deck now for quite a while. And it just never ceases to teach me something new. Whenever I bring this deck out, it's just always got something encouraging or wise to tell me about my situation. It's got a mandala on each card and a keyword and a little affirmation. But that's not what makes this deck so good. The thing that makes this underrated is I think that it's not as popular as it deserves to be. Because, and I think I've spoken about this deck before in other videos, but the guidebook has some really good life lessons in it. It always gives me something thoughtful to nibble on or journal about. And when I'm having a tough time or I feel like I really need some guidance in my life, feeling a little bit lost, feeling a little bit ungrateful, feeling a little bit lonely or whatever, this deck, small as it is, it only has 44 cards. But it still manages to have such a breadth. Sorry, it's like how do I say this? It's got such a wide variety of emotions and situations, and it's helped me out of more than a few scrapes. So I have a very tender opinion about this deck. So yeah, Soul's Journey Lesson cards by James Van Praagh is definitely one of my all-time faves, and I think that it is sorely underrated. It is very underrated. I think especially because it's not got that very modern artwork or anything like that. But yeah, it's a good deck, you guys. It's a good deck. All right, so now on to the one deck that I feel is overrated and underrated at the same time. The paradox in this category is actually the regular Rider-Waite Smith, or the Smith-Waite, or whatever you want to call this deck. Now, hear me out, because I have a point to make, and this is all in good fun. I'm not trying to, speak ill of anyone or anything like that. I'm just, making an observation. And I'm thinking, because it feels like, all right, I'm having a hard time finding the right words to say this. But I do feel that a lot of the time the opinions on this deck are very polarized. So we have the opinion that this deck is the only and the best, and basically what most tarot decks nowadays are based on, and they're not wrong, obviously, but then there's the crowd that feels that this deck, there's only one way to read tarot, and that's the way you read the Rider-Waite Smith, and etc., etc. So I feel like the deck is quite overrated in that sense. Then we also have the crowd who absolutely despises the Rider-Waite Smith, or not, okay, despise is a very harsh word, but we have a crowd who thinks that the Rider-Waite Smith might not be beautiful enough, or good enough, colorful enough, or maybe it's too colorful, as with these brightly yellow cards. and they feel like it's a very difficult deck to read. And I mean, they're not wrong, in the sense that it might not be as intuitive as some of the more modern decks, because it harkens back to a day where that's not very recognizable to us anymore. It might not appeal to everyone, and that's okay. But I do feel that that also kind of makes it a bit underrated in some cases. Because I think that this, especially when you start reading up about Pixie, Pamela Coleman Smith, who did the artwork for this deck, and all of that, it's very interesting. And you start to get a bigger appreciation for this deck. And I do really like Pixie's artwork, and I especially prefer the decks that has her Pixie's font. And, the same thing can be said for basically every deck. I think every deck can be underrated or overrated. It's all depending on opinion. I underrated I put the Wild Unknown as overrated, essentially underrating it, because I'm pretty sure that it's a perfectly great deck. There's so many people who love it. So there is no reason why that deck shouldn't be perfectly good, which means that I have underrated that deck. Do you understand what I'm trying to say? So I think that every tarot deck essentially can hold meaning and be a really great deck. It's all dependent on how much energy and time and thought you give each deck. The more time you spend with a deck, the more significance it's going to hold in your life. And so I feel that every deck has the potential of being underrated or overrated. And so I wanted to give a shout out to the Waitsmith deck, because I feel that so many people say, no, this deck isn't for me. It's too old, too ugly, or whatever. But I do feel that the Rider-Waite-Smith should have a very special place in our hearts, no matter if you adore the artwork or not. So, this is the deck that I chose as the paradox for the overrated versus underrated category. Okay, we are finally at the last section, and that is light work versus shadow work. Okay, you guys, so for my light work deck, I have chosen a teaser. The teaser I always show you because it's just so dear to my heart, and it is my Victorian Fairy Tarot. This deck is my light work deck for sure. I considered this deck for most of these categories, actually. I considered it as my best shuffle. I considered it as my comforting deck. I considered it for my everyday deck. And I considered it as my underrated deck. But you know what? In the end, I chose it to represent the light work part. Now, I'm not going to pretend that I know exactly what you mean by light work. I haven't even researched it in order to do this video. I just know that this card brings me enlightenment in most things. It helps me get through the day most of the time. It gives me a little chuckle when I need it. It gives me advice when I need it. It helps me see things from different perspectives. It helps me appreciate nature and the little things in life. This deck does so much for me that I'm pretty sure it includes light work. I'm pretty sure that the thing I do mostly with it, when it comes to my tarot readings, is light work anyway, because I don't do predictive readings. I don't ask the cards what's going to happen today, or will I be successful in this. I ask things like how, in what way, or how can I look at something differently? What's a different perspective of this bothersome thing that's happening to me? What can I do about certain situations? How can I feel better in this moment? Things like that. And this deck has just become a warm friend, a friendly face to take my hand, show me some pretty pictures, and it smells amazing, and the book is absolutely fantastic. I love Linnea Weatherstone. Her other deck, Forest of Enchantment, is another deck that I could have chosen for this category as well. I use that deck all the time. So it was between Forest of Enchantment and this one, and you know what? It was basically a toss of a coin. I love them equally, but I chose to show you this one instead. And I'm not gonna babble on much more about it because for those of you that have seen my videos before, you know I love this deck, and for those of you who have seen those videos also know that this deck is out of print, and so I always feel bad about showing it in my videos. But yeah, I adore this deck, and it is my Lightwork Tarot deck of choice. Now, I am bending the rules once more because my Shadowwork deck is the Shimmering Light Tarot. Shimmering Veil Tarot. And I showed this to you earlier in the video, but I had to include it as my Shadowwork deck because Shadowwork, this is basically what I see when I think about doing Shadowwork. This is the deck I see. You know, I don't do shadow work very often, and that's why it also had to be my every so often deck. You know, all the other decks I tend to circulate between. I do have another one. I almost mentioned the Margaret Peterson, but I couldn't do that because I literally never properly read with that deck, so I couldn't include that. This one, on the other hand, like I said, shadow work from beginning to end with this deck, and that's why it was also my every so often deck, because I don't do shadow work very often. Yeah, at least not yet. And like I said when I showed you in the every so often bit, it's this could have also been my confronting, but it's more than that, I feel. And yeah, I do want to work more with this deck, but I am just not in that space in my life at the moment where I am able to do shadow work. I need to be in a better place before that can happen, I feel. If ever. I mean, do you have to do shadow work? I don't think so. I just know that this deck is going to be very revealing to me, and I have strong feelings about this deck. And so, yes, this is my Shadowwork Tarot deck. And right, my Lightwork Oracle. My Lightwork Oracle, I chose the Inner Star Oracle deck, Magic Edition. So this is a deck that's a little bit different, I feel, because it's comprised of these almost sigil-like illustrations, that are drawn on top of this background that you, at first glance, it just looks like, colors that are just blended together. But when you start looking more closely, you can see that there's actual pictures in the back as well. And I think it helps me, this deck really helps me connect to my best self, I think. And that's why I chose it for the light work. It helps me feel connected to the energies around me and the work that I can do. Like this one here, you can see it says natural cycles. We've got this beautiful illustration here with the flower and these crescent moons. And if you look, I don't know how if I need to go further back, but you can see here's a butterfly wing in the background. And I just feel like this deck could have also been in the underrated oracle category, because I don't see anybody talking about this deck. But I think it's really beautiful. It's a bit boho, it's a bit hippie-ish, and I forgive it. I forgive it for that. Because I just think that it really brings me something. It makes me happy to look at all of these colors. The sigils, or whatever you want to call them, feel really potent and powerful. I like picking one of these cards and just leaving them on my desk for a week while I contemplate on the meaning. And the guidebook, even though it's little and looks really, unsubstantial, it really packs a punch, I feel. I really like it. It's like this one, for example, inspire yourself. It's easy to find external sources of inspiration for the things you want to attract for yourself. Do you ever look to find this within yourself or admire what you have to offer? Try not to be quick to criticize yourself. Your ego loves to imagine you as less than you are. For a moment, listen to what your inner sage would have to say about the light in your soul. Affirmation: I see the gifts and unique qualities that are within me and use it as an inspiration to be the best version of myself. Like, yeah, it's a bit woo-woo, but in the core of it, that's good advice. I like it, even though it's a little bit woo-woo. I think everybody would feel better if they allowed a little bit of woo-woo in their life. But yeah, inner resources, essential growth, express your truth, the goddess within, allow the unknown, expand your heart, miracle of life. So yeah, I think this one is very light worky, and I don't use it too often or anything. I have other oracles that I use more, because I feel like I can light work with most of my oracles, to be honest. But yeah, that was the Inner Star Oracle by Joe Klima. Now, the shadow work oracle of choice. I have chosen the Soul Cards number 1. I still don't have number 2. I plan on getting number 2 at some point. But this deck has much of the same feel as the Shimmering Veil to me. I get so many strong feelings looking at these cards, and it is definitely a shadow work deck for me. In many ways. It's very potent, it's very beautiful, but it could have also been included in my worst shuffle category, because I really can't with this sticky glossiness. So yeah, but yes, it's a beautiful, beautiful deck. And the only reason why I haven't gotten the second one is because if I get the second one, I know that I will want to put them together. And I'm already struggling with the size, with the size of this deck. So if I get the second one, I'm afraid I'm not going to be using them because it's going to be a humongous deck that I simply can't handle, which would be such a shame. So yeah, this is the Soul Cards number 1, and it's my Shadow Work Oracle. Now I could have included the Reclaim Oracle here, but since I didn't want to have too many repeating decks, I decided to not include it in the Shadow Work category. All right, we have reached the very final deck, and we've nearly done 2 hours. Oh my gosh, you guys, I'm so sorry. Where is that deck now? There it is. So the one paradox deck for this category that I feel can do both light work and shadow work for me is the Trionfi della Luna illustrated pips. I adore this deck, and I feel like it might also have been underrated. In my opinion, this will always be underrated. I love this deck so much, and I feel like I can do both light and shadow work with this deck. It's confronting in a way, but it's also humorous and hopeful and uplifting. And I know most people might not see how this could be uplifting, but I do feel like these characters are very charming, adorable in a lot of cases. And I love these little weirdo things happening in the background as well. And I'm gonna also point out these blue little weird demon chickens that I absolutely adore in this lighting card. I can't get enough of this deck. I can't. I love it so much. And the pips are fantastic. I absolutely love the minors in this deck. I shouldn't call them pips because it's illustrated, but still. Yeah, no, I feel like this definitely can do both the light work that I'm looking for, as well as offer a little twist like this one. Look at that face. I mean, yes. And then that dude behind him. This definitely has some shadow work aspects in it, and I'm so here for this deck. I adore it so much. So that is the Trionfi della Luna illustrated Pips edition by Patrick Valenza, and it is my paradox deck of choice that can do both light work and shadow work at the same time. And that's funny because Patrick Valenza also releases versions of these decks that are called the paradoxical versions. But never mind me. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope that Marlene didn't mind too much that I went off script a little bit and included oracles as well as paradoxes in my VR. I'm so happy that you're here and watching my channel. I'm so grateful to all of you who comments and subscribes, and yeah, just keep on being the extraordinary people that you are. Take care of yourselves and be well, my friends, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye!